I'm Sanjeev Ramanan, and today I'll be presenting my research on car sales patterns using classification and clustering algorithms for the CISC 520 class. So, what's in this presentation? First, I'm just going to introduce the research that I've conducted. Second, I will go over the data that I used in this research. Third, we will talk about the research procedure, which is steps I have taken to complete this research. And then fourth, we will talk about the results of the analysis that I've conducted. And finally, I will summarize the findings of the research and analysis that I have done. In this presentation, we will go over the research I've done on the car evaluation dataset in particular. Essentially, we'll be running two types of data mining algorithms on cars purchased to gain some insights and identify patterns in car sales. In particular, we'll be running some classification and clustering algorithms. So the data is collected from the UCI Machine Learning Repository, which has a few feature variables and one target variables for cars. It essentially has information about the buying price of the car, its maintenance price, the number of doors in the car, the number of people that can sit in the car, its trunk size, safety, and finally the target variable, which is acceptability of the car. So the research procedure that I used is as follows. The first step was data pre-processing. So this is prior to the main analysis where we convert our categorical variables into numeric variables, and we also split the data set into training and test data, which will then be later on used for our models that we'll be using. Second, we go ahead and create and train the SVM classification model and generate some summary statistics on it to see how it performed. Then we will also create the random forest classification model and generate some summary statistics on it as well. Then we will be quantitatively comparing these two classification models in step 4. And finally, we will use some k-means clustering on this data set to generate 4 different types of clusters. So let's go ahead and jump into the results. So first, this is the summary statistics for the SVM classification algorithm. What we see here is a precision of 60% and a recall of 0.7. So that means this model is 60% accurate in classifying a car's acceptability rating. Then we go on and see the summary statistics for the random forest classification algorithm. What we see here is a 98% precision rate to classify cars into acceptability ratings and a 0.97 recall, which is a really good performance for our random forest classification algorithm. Now that we identified that the random forest classification algorithm is what we'll go with over the SVM algorithm, we tried to notice or highlight the features that were most important for this algorithm. And what we see is that safety ranks the highest in helping this algorithm classify the acceptability of a car, while doors is the least important feature in getting this acceptability rating. Finally, we move on to our k-means clustering. So once we've conducted the k-means clustering, we created a heat map from it. What we see is 4 different rows, 0, 1, 2, 3, representing the different clusters. And our columns is buying price, maintenance price, and all the other feature variables. So what we can see is that if that's a high number, it means that, for example, in cluster 0, we see a 2.35 in buying price, which means the buying price is a little bit high. And in cluster number 1, we see a 0.47 for buying price, which means the buying price is very low. So how do we summarize the results from those visualizations that we created? What we see is that the random forest classification performs significantly better than the SVM classification algorithm with a 98% accuracy. We also see that safety is the most important factor in a car's acceptability and classifying it as such. And finally, the cars in this data set can be split into roughly 3 categories using our k-means clustering, which is luxury car, economy cars, and older retro cars. That concludes the research that I've conducted and the summary of it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.